Class, and good evening to you too, sir. My name is Professor John Kobe Bamfo, alongside my colleague, Professor Solomon Dakukwam, and we are the representatives of CE Group 4A, treating the topic threats in networks. Okay, so our main topic of the day is what makes a network vulnerable. So, a network, first of all, I would like to explain what a network is. So, as we all know, a network consists of two or more computers that are connected together, usually by means of cable or Wi-Fi. And um, the definition for a standalone environment. So, a standalone environment are individual managed devices that take the form of a computer. Example: desktops, laptops, smartphones, tablets, etc. You can take the form of a computer. You can reason like a computer. The standalone environment. So with that said, we would jump right into it. How does a network differ from a standalone environment? That's it's not actually a question, it's a statement that you're making, which would have to provide points to be able to support this statement. But before that, prior to the question here, it says what makes a network vulnerable? First of all, what is network vulnerability? Network vulnerability is a weakness in software or hardware, which can be compromised, that is harmed by a threat and results in a breach of security. So, when a network has been breached by an attacker or hacker or whoever wants to breach it, it means that that network has fallen vulnerable to that attack. So that is how a network can be termed as vulnerable. So the first point I'd like to explain under this would be one, anonymity. The state of being unknown to most people. That is the state at which something is said to be hidden. Now, if an attacker says, say a hacker, lives miles away, example, say you, as an example, you the user, you stay in Ghana, and he, the attacker, stays in Russia. He can mount an attack on you on your PC without you even knowing that he was the one who did it, because he concealed himself totally. And that's what we term as anonymity. They do it in stealth mode. They do it in a way that you cannot see them. It's like they're ninjas, attack and disappear. That's how they are. So that's for the first point, anonymity. And the second point saying many points of attack, both targets and origins. Since the network consists of many interconnected computers, the sharing of personal stuff like resources and work related stuff can easily be accessed by other devices. But also in this case, since they are on the network as well, it's likely for them to be prone to such attacks. So it's more like two-way. Though you can be able to get attacked on the network, the same way another person on the network can is also sharing his information, his resources, everything. If he can even get access to your resources, you can also get access to his. So it's like it's more like everybody can clinch on it. Everyone has leverage. Yeah, let me say it that way. Everyone has leverage. But in terms of when an attacker is supposed to attack, attackers normally, because of the anonymity, the stealth phase, like it's part of their characteristics. So they would never actually be on a network that you can actually access their information. Even if they are on it, it will be very difficult for you to access their information because they're hackers. they always know how to cover their tracks. So yeah, that's a mini point of attack. Next point, that was an unknown perimeter. Okay, okay. This factor tells how big a network gets as it grows in terms of interconnected computers. So, as such, the boundary or limit to which the network is to contain this in quotes interconnected computers is not known. So you'd notice that, for example, a network grows as time goes on. So a network today would have like two users to connect to two or more. So two users. Tomorrow, four. The other day, six. As the days go on, it increases. And it actually loses track of, maybe let's say the network was built to contain 10 people, but you cannot control the traffic. So as they are as the users are building up, you lose track of if it even had a limit in the first place. And due to the fact that lots of people are coming on it, the more the people, the more the users, the more the computers that come onto the network, the more vulnerable it gets, because there are lots. It then becomes very difficult to actually keep track on each and every single person's resources, try and protect them. Yeah, so that's with the unknown perimeter. And the complexity of a system. Okay, this point was actually stated because it was sent to me by someone different. I'll try as much as possible to explain it. So, a system's operating system, as we all know, is highly complicated. Like, it's a fact. And this means that understanding how to manipulate it to be able to defend, yourselves um against attackers is knowledge which is supposed to be obtained by understanding how an OS functions and being able to exploit its use. So if someone say a user knows nothing about how his OS functions, there is no way he's going to be able to um, defend himself. It's more likely that if an attacker even attacks him, probably he wouldn't even know that he has been attacked until later on in the future, where they tell him to provide information concerning his, let's say, uh, his maybe MAC address, try and see if he's clean. Then they find that he has confidential, secretive plans or something that actually he has no idea on. Maybe a heist plan or a rob the bank plan. We don't know. So yeah, all that could have actually been imported to his machine, or maybe he has those things on his machine which has been extracted from his machine or his computer to the remote host, being the attacker, because he knows nothing about it. So it's like coming up against um the best in the world and you are a newbie. Get it? An attacker knows like practically everything about an OS. He knows where to attack, how to counter attack. So it's like everything is put in place. There's no way you can go around it. Yeah, that's how an attacker is. So far as he has knowledge, like adequate knowledge about an OS, he can be able to attack you, defend himself. Even if you pay somebody to come and defend you, he can defend himself because he's a hacker. He knows what he's doing, but you don't. Yeah, so that's the complexity of the system for mere users like some people. We go on. So threat precursors. I'd explain what a threat precursor is. So a threat precursor is just a sign that pops up when an attacker is likely to cause an incident to you, the target, in the future. So it's more like, yeah, it's more like an indication to you, something you something you notice when an attacker wants to cause harm to you in the future. So there are three. Okay, there are actually more than three. There are types of threat precursors. First one, port scan. As we say, the port scan technique is used to discover the weakest points in a network by hackers. So these hackers will check which ports on a network are open. Then they will which ports on the network are open and which ports are sending or receiving data. So a port which is open and is exchanging data. So at that point in time, it's even vulnerable because first things first, it's open. Two, it's sharing and receiving data. Then scanning takes place when the hacker first identifies a list of active hosts and maps them to their IP addresses. And this is termed as host discovery. So the hackers then diagnose the security levels. I'm actually given how the process of port scanning is. So the hackers then diagnose security levels, and then port scanning identifies open ports on a network and then may enable unauthorized access, which paves way for them to attack. So that's all about port scanning. Reconnaissance, social engineering. Okay, with social engineering, it has to do with manipulating people through constantly interacting with them to give up confidential information like the password or bank information, etc. So I would like to give a direct example. Um Fraud boys. Yeah, this is what fraud boys do. Like that's the main game of fraud boys. They go on sites to get clients from abroad, England, USA, normally USA, but some come from other countries too, like Germany, France, all of that. But normally they get it from USA because most of these PUA and um, these money moves come from there. Yeah, like PUA, SBA loan, all these kind of things. They are all from the United States. So what they do is they go online. They go online and try to gain the trust of whoever or their victim, whoever they get as a victim. And when they gain the trust of that person, they gain access to their password, their bank information. It's like they pose as business people who can bring something meaningful into your life one or two times. And actually, it's true. They do give you they do bring something meaningful into your life because when they're getting the money, it's like they are getting the main thing, but you, the client, who is the person in the United States or wherever, you'd also be getting your share. But if you get caught, and by you get caught, I mean the person who is, let's say, in Nigeria, the Nigerian fraudster, if he gets caught, you are the one going to be in trouble. You, the client who lives in the United States or wherever, is the one going to be in trouble. So it's like they play it safe by using you as bait. But you as bait, you're also benefiting in some form of way. But it's likely you'd get caught. United States, you'd always get caught. So that's the thing about the social engineering. They just use that to get money from the United States, bring a huge sum of dollars and change it into Nigerian cities. They've blown. Reconnaissance. Reconnaissance. Okay, so an attacker engages with targets to gather info remotely by visual observation or other detection methods. This to me, I feel, would be like one of the deadliest ways of actually of one of the deadliest threat precursors of all time. Mainly because it has to do with the attacker planning, planning to take you down. It's not like he has targets. He narrows it down to one person. Just imagine this. One person thinking about you for months. One person who is an A-lister when it comes to hacking. One person who probably has mastered algorithms that can change the world and has decided to target you, personally you, for months, planning attacks, counter attacks, um, defense strategies, all of that. That's how reconnaissance is. The mission there is to obtain information by constant visual observation. So they get your info, and when they get your info, they get it for months. What time you get, what time you get on your PC, how long you use it for, what time you leave to bed, what time you go to work, what time you start using your PC during work. Then they draw an average. Then like they put it like they make it like a bar chart in the sense where they strike averages for each. So whichever time frame they get, whichever average they get, which totally matches their scheme, that's when they strike. Okay, at this time he wouldn't be around. I strike at this time. At this time he would access this. I strike at this time. This, boom. You think you are smart enough to counter attack. You try and do something, but he has already thought that through because the guy has been sitting there for months thinking of how you are going to counter attack, thinking of all the loopholes he'd leave when he attacks, and you try to beat him or rebuttal at that side, and then he just kick you out, you know. And then when he succeeds and you try to go after him, boom, then he uses his final weapon, and that's his defense strategies. And then he just leaves you lying all there dead. It's sad. Okay, so next slide. Yeah, threat precursors continued. First one is the operating system and application, fingerprinting. So this method of utilizing gathered information of a target host to find out what application server, web server operating system the machine is running on. This mainly just allows people or allows the attackers to to notify him on which server the machine is running on so that he can be able to call, he can be able to mount an attack. Yeah. So uh, okay. Bulletin boards and chats. A bulletin board, reading from the slide, a bulletin board system is a computer network that allows users to communicate with each other electronically and share data. This is mainly the reason, is actually the main reason why networks are vulnerable. So, with this said, as a third precursor, when you are sharing your information electronically, an attacker has the leverage of infiltrating that network because, first of all, you are on a network which is vulnerable. Secondly, there is a hacker who can just come on the network. And network doesn't really require any special privileges to join. Any hacker can come on it. If I was sharing information, this is actually related to sports scanning. If you are sharing information, your ports are open, which leads you, which makes you vulnerable. So, with that said, the attacker can infiltrate and gain access, unauthorized access to your information or to your PC, and gain information from there. So the next one being availability of documents. So it says here that technical record of the hardware, software service, directory structure, user profiles, data, and how it all works together. Network documents should include any information that helps administrators and IT professionals to keep the network up and running smoothly. So that is self-explanatory. So, now, threats in transit. So this topic, and it consists of eavesdropping and wiretapping. So eavesdropping is listening carefully to something you want to hear just by being steady and not expanding any extra effort. So you want to hear something which you are not supposed to hear. So that term is called overhearing. You want to hear something. So you sit down, study, and listen to the person from a distance, but you don't add any effort at all. So that you can be able to listen to what the person is saying. That's what eavesdropping is. So, in terms of InfoSec, an example is an attacker is eavesdropping by monitoring all traffic passing through a node. So, because this is InfoSec, it's not literally a direct example. Sorry, it's not really directly from the actual definition of eavesdropping. But in this sense, in InfoSec, the attacker is eavesdropping. The eavesdropping comes here because he's monitoring carefully traffic passing through a node. He's not supposed to do that. He's doing that because he wants to know the traffic that is passing through the node. But he wants to know what is happening extra or at external, at external places, external networks. So, now the more hostile term for eavesdropping is wiretapping. Wiretapping is when a third party secretly monitors communications in order to investigate a party, or gain information of that party. So the choices of wiretapping consist of cables, microwaves, satellite communication, optical fiber, or wireless. Wiretapping actually, normally the government of the state uses it to be able to monitor people or foreigners that come into the country and that they feel that uh, they are up to something fishy. So what they do is they wire tap their phone lines, the networks. That is the line in which they communicate. Yeah. So let's say when a Russian comes into your country and maybe they are planning an attack and they are talking to each other, the line in which that um, communication, that information is supposed to be transferred in, is tapped by the government to be able to get information on whether they are actually planning to cause an attack or not. Yeah. So in this case too, um, attackers can do that to be able to monitor their targets to get vital information. Let's say one person is having a business meeting with another person and he's planning where they meet. Maybe he wants to meet at Dubai. Yeah. And if the attacker wants to be closer to the target to be able to get vital information, if he can, he go to Dubai too. So they are getting the information he needs. Alright. Next we have the protocol flaws. So it is each protocol is identified by its request for comment RFC number. First off, an RFC is a numbered document which includes appraisals, descriptions, and definitions of online protocols, concepts, methods, and programs. So in TCP, the client's number will increase on a regular basis. Then it will cause its estimation of the next number to be easy because it's incrementing. So it will cause the next number's estimation to be easy. Yeah. Okay, on this slide we talk about impersonation. What is impersonation? So an attacker will impersonate his client by providing the needed info, say email, password, etc., to maneuver his way past the security context of the server. Yeah, that is what do. They would try and maneuver their way past the security context so that it would feel like the person who needs or the person who actually is supposed to be on the network at the moment, although he's not the one, they would feel that he is the one. So that's how impersonation works. So in impersonation of impersonation, an attacker has several choices. Yeah, so first choice gets the identity authentication details of the target. So an attacker would solely base this on luck by just trying out possible means to surpass the security. Just input the email. He knows the email but does not know the password, but knows that okay, on this server or on this different network, this guy's password is KingVU2223. So let me just alter it. KingVU2224 1225 2226. Okay, boom. And that's the password. So that's for the first one. The second one, disable authentication mechanism on the target computer. So an attacker will try to hack and disable authentication on the target computer. Sometimes it could be based on luck because possibly the target leaves his work area open after he's done and gets to log out, which then the attacker gets an easier means to disable authentication. Just goes to settings, goes to disable, goes to security, disable authentication, done. It's finished. You can be able to surpass the network. That doesn't even have to go to any form of security checks. So 3. Use a target that will not be authenticated. Attacker will use someone who has no authentication mechanism enabled. Like that is actually the easiest pass for an attacker. To use someone who has no authentication mechanism enabled. So it's actually self-explanatory. So next one, use a target whose authentication data are known. The attacker will use the data he has on the target to bypass the authentication. So the data, the full details, the email, the house address, the zip code, the phone number, the family size, all of that in that. When he has all of that, he'll be able to log into any of them and bypass security. Because sometimes authentication questions come. They ask you questions like, what's the name of your first best friend? If the attacker has all these details, something like that is going to be a no-brainer to him or her. Okay. Next on the slide is spoofing. Spoofing. What is spoofing? Okay. Spoofing is when a cyber criminal disguises himself or themselves as another person, business, or entity in order to commit malicious acts. So this is more like impersonation, but it's more broader because impersonation narrows it down to just like mimicking or pretending to be someone else. Here, you are pretending to be not just someone else, but another business or another entity body altogether. And that said, a person can pretend to be a business, let's say a credible business, a legitimate business, to be able to get funds, investors, a lot of things. Yeah. So I'd like to use an example, men's gold, but it's not entirely that much of uh, the best of examples, but it will do. So regarding men's gold had the recognition of a gold investing company. Gold investing company.
And gold investing companies all around the world, we know that there are most around the world that are credible, that are legitimate. And due to that legitimacy, men's gold were able to deceive people by getting that credibility from these big um, gold investing companies. Yeah. So when they got that kind of legitimacy, a lot of people decided to deal with men's gold. A lot of people decided to invest in men's gold, and they lost their money. Ouch. Okay. So that's my example. Men's gold. Obtaining the network authentication credentials of an entity, a user, an account, a process, a node, a device permits an attacker to create a full communication under the entity's identity. So this is just trying to tell us that when an attacker gets all this information, the credentials of an entity, business, or person, they can be able to make a complete replica of whatever credible um, business or person they want to imitate or own. So when they are done doing that, okay, they go out there, they text high profile people, know very well that they probably get a shot at whatever goal they want to achieve because they, they are going with a high profile person themselves. Yeah, and they do business with them. Yeah. So that's all about spoofing. So we have examples of spoofing, which include masquerading, session hijacking, and man-in-the-middle attacks. So with masquerading, it's just the basic one who pretends to be another person. That's one person steals the credentials of the original high-profile person and then impersonates him or business, the profile of a high business, all the documents that make them that business, and then make a replica of it and go out and defend them. Session hijacking. So session hijacking is intercepting and carrying on a session begun by another entity. Now, here there are two parties that are dealing in business. One party wants the other party to invest in his company. And when party B invests in party A's company, party A's company can provide resources for party B. The spoofer or attacker can block the link between them and deal with whatever source he feels he can get more liquid from. So in terms of equity, I mean equity. So in this sense, in terms of equity, he deal with party B. Immediately party B sends the attacker, and oh, mind I say this, the attacker is now impersonating party A. So with party B, in the view of party B, he's still dealing with party A, but the attacker is not party A. He has impersonated him, so he has made a direct replica. It's like a clone of party A, and he's standing in front of party A, shielding him. So whatever party B is supposed to send to party A, the attacker gets it, and when he's done with everything, he just runs off with it, which will make party A's career downside. Man in the middle attack. Man in the middle attack is a form of attack in which one entity intrudes between two others. Between two others. Man in the middle attack. Normally what they do is they intrude in between a business transaction between two parties. Again, say A and B. When the attacker intrudes, what he does is he first impersonates A when dealing with B. So say A is supposed to send money to B and B will send resources to A. A sends money, party, and then the attacker gets the money. The attacker gets the money, alters it in such a way that he takes some of the money and gives the rest to party B. But he does it in such a way that he will be able to manipulate the transaction to be able manipulate the transaction in a way that party B will feel that, oh, this money, the remaining which the attacker is sending him, is the actual amount of money that party A sent. So that's what, when party A sends it to the attacker, sends him, let's say he takes half and sends him half, and the party B, and he will make party B think that half is what, the half of the money left is what party A actually sends. The party B, when he sends the resources, will also do the same thing. The party B take some and then will give the rest to party A, making him feel that party B sent just half of it. But that's how the deal is supposed to go. You get it? Yeah. So that is just about it for man in the middle attack. Okay. So message confidentiality. Okay, so the communications integrity or correctness is at least as crucial as its secrecy. So what we need to know from this is that threats based upon failures of integrity in communication include 1. Falsification of messages. That is the sending of a message to deceive the recipient as to who the real sender is. Let's just take this example. If a person using an email gets an email from a friend, he normally has chats with, he normally is in contact with, that they should meet at the beach. He's likely to get up and go and meet his friend. Or say that same person is likely to get a message from his supervisor saying that stop working on project A for your project defense and work on project B. It's more likely to fetch you marks, or it's more likely to contain less flaws. The person would agree because he knows that that's his lecture. He has been texting his lecturer. He knows that the trust I have in him, this is the person I'm texting. So I know that this is the person. This person is who I think it is, who I know it is. The same applies to his friend. With that said, an attacker will decide to manipulate this by resending messages like this from a replica account, even on the same account, a replica account which will have the same details as whichever person the user communicates with. So let's say the lecturer, he can be able to impersonate the lecturer and alter his messages by sending him a false message to reach the attacker. So normally spam messages and all that has to do with notification of messages. All those things. Yeah. So when it comes into his email, so he feels that his lecturer has texted him. So he just opens it, sees something which is out of the blue. But he feels, oh, there's my lecturer. Probably he knows what he's doing. Let me just go ahead with it. And he does, then gets himself into trouble. And at the end of the day, the lecturer actually be like, I didn't tell you to do that. I didn't rejected you. Yep. Yeah. So that's with the falsification of messages. And noise. Okay, so signals are sent over a communication medium, subject to interference from other traffic on the same media or medium, as well as from natural sources such as lightning, electronic meters, and animals. So that's for the message. That's for the noise and the message confidentiality threats. Denial of service. So website defacement. Um, what a website defacement is. Website defacement are unauthorized modification of web pages including additional alteration or of existing content. So a website defacement, when an attacker decides to deface a website, all he does is he can be able to get access to the codes, the HTML codes of that site by means of hacking. When he gets that, he alters it in such a way that he will remove some things. So he removes things or he adds things just so he can be able to get users off the site or more users on the site for the wrong reasons. Because obviously an attacker doesn't need the best for you. He's doing everything to be able to get the negative aspect of everything for you. Yeah. So that's what an attacker does. So the attacker there, the hacktivist. Let me say it that way. A hacktivist is just a hacker who is an activist. So the hacktivist will just alter the content to be able to get users off or on the site for the wrong reasons. So it says here at the end that a defacement is common not only because it is visible, not only because of its visibility, but also because of the ease with which one can be done. So this just tells you that this is a no-brainer. Obviously, this is something activists learn as ABC. So to them, this thing is something like ABC. Defacement. Defacement is like, yeah, defacement to activists is like learning ABC. To us, it's something trivial. So they know it offhand. And to do that, okay, I'll move on. Denial of service. Okay, so denial of service attack uh, that have hosted networks gets shut down, making it inaccessible to its intended users. So what they basically do is they flood the targets with traffic, which include frames, packets, messages, etc., which are being carried over the network, or send a bunch of information that cause the system to crash totally. So at the end of the day, the paid users will be deprived, like let's say a service which has premium services. We have free users and then premium users. So a service with premium services will have their services deprived from them. So they will have their services deprived. So that has to do with denial of service attack. Okay, so denial of service attack, there are many accidental and malicious threats to availability or continued services. So the first one, transmission failure. Transmission failure is where the data that is being sent, it's like the data is sent, like when you're on a network and the uplink, the data uplink, you can see that it's being sent, but the downlink is not coming. There is downlink, but the data, like there's nothing showing there. It's dry. You can see it there. Network has crashed. You don't get it. Yeah. So that's what the transmission failure means. And the connection flooding. So connection flooding just occupies all possible TCP connections on the server, and it prevents the legitimate requests from being established and served. Yeah. So with that, there are a lot: echo charging, ping of death, smurf, SIM flood, teardrop, traffic redirection, DNS attacks, so many. So these are all accidental and malicious threats to availability or continued service. Right. So we talk about mobile code. Mobile code is an app, a program, or a content capable of movement file fixed in an email, document, or website. So what it can do is it can it's code that is mobile. Like it's actually even in the name. An app program content which is fixed that can move. Sorry, which can move while in a fixed email document or website. So examples include Flash animations, Shockwave movies, Java applets, ActiveX controls, so many. So that's just it. And the other name for mobile code can also be active code. So yeah. Alright. What is threat analysis? Threat analysis. Threat analysis is a process used to determine which components of the system need to be protected and types of security risks or threats that should be protected from. So, from the definition, this is actually like a solution to everything we've said from the beginning. The threat analysis is just how someone who needs to be protected is going to be able to, first things first, identify the risk. If he doesn't identify the risk, it's like that's the primary form of analysis, the primary and the first stage of any form of analysis. first thing first is net analysis is to first identify the threat and then be able to go on through all these steps to be able to protect themselves from that threat. That's why it says a process. So it's a process. So all the threats here are summarized with a list as follows. So intercepting data and traffic, accessing programs or data at remote hosts by the attackers, modifying programs or data at remote hosts. At remote hosts. Attackers as well. Modifying data in transit. That's wiretapping or eavesdropping. Yeah. So that they will not be able to tap or wiretap you, listen to a conversation and all that. Inserting communications. So different. Yeah. There's more. Impersonating a user, which we've talked about. Inserting a repeat of a previous communication. Inserting a repeat of a previous communication, which is linked to. Okay, let me just continue. I've actually explained that already. Talk about it. Blocking selected traffic. Blocking all traffic, running a program on a remote host. Okay, so that's for data analysis. And we have design and implementation. So here, talk about the architecture. The architecture or design of a network can have a significant effect on its security. So with that said, we have the main areas that we are going to cover. So the first one being the segmentation, which involves dividing a computer network to smaller parts, which resolves the issue of unknown perimeter. Remember in the first slide, we talked about unknown perimeter, who are using us to why the network is vulnerable. Yeah. So this is a solution which can be able to resolve it. So what to do is that massive network, as the network is growing time and time in, let's say after 1 week, the network contains 20 computers. I'm able to break down the network into sub networks, which will contain, say, 5 each. So 555. And then you can be able to manage the traffic and everything inside that network or inside each network. So that's for segmentation. And then you have redundancy. So redundancy has to do with duplicated infrastructure, where additional or alternate instances of network devices are installed to run as backup when there is any form of data failure. So if there is data failure, what redundant data will do is it will come right up to take its place. So as the system is on, it just backs it up, and then immediately it fails, and that system just goes down. Then the backup rises up to take its place. So it's like it was never lost in the first place. Yeah. So that's how redundancy works. Then we have single point of failure. Single point of failure is a flaw of a non-redundant part of a system, which when dysfunctional would cause the entire system to fail. So it's actually straightforward. Single point of failure. It's targeted at one place. So if there is a fault concerning the non-redundant part of the system, then the whole system will fail. Alright, then we have mobile agents. So the mobile agent is a composition of computer softwares and data that is able to move from one computer to another. autonomously and continue its execution on the destination computer. Okay, alright, so I'll be talking about encryption. So, what is encryption? So, encryption basically is taking plain text, like a text message or an email, and mixing it up into an unreadable format called ciphertext. So the main purpose for this actually is just to protect the privacy of a user's data stored on the computer or transmitted via a network, example, internet. Yeah. So we have of networks, two types of encryption schemes. The first encryption scheme is the link encryption. So, at every stage or node, communication between two parties occurs. So, the communication traveling along a network is encrypted and decrypted at each stage. So, first off, decryption is just the process that transforms encrypted info into its original format. So at each stage, what it says is that when the information is going, first off, at the first stage, the information which is in plain text is transformed into ciphertext. That is, it's mixed up into an unreadable format and sent to the network. And as it's going and it arrives at its destination, that's when decryption occurs. So it just changes from that unreadable format back to its original format. Yeah, so that's link encryption. We have end-to-end encryption. So end-to-end encryption says that a secure communication, end-to-end encryption's definition. So it's a secure communication that prevents third parties, where third parties has to do with maybe the the service provider, the the network uh, the network hosts, like anyone, even attackers can be third parties, like hackers and all that can be third parties. So the secure communication that prevents these third parties from accessing data whilst it's being transferred from one end of a device to another. So it's going to and fro. It's like it's not stopping. It doesn't go one to, like, from one source to another source, and at that stage it just stops and then encryption and decryption occurs. No, at end at this end there is encryption, at the other end there is encryption. So that's why in the slide it says provide security from one end of the transmission to the other. Yeah, so that's end-to-end encryption. So I would end my um, my presentation here and would hand it over to my colleague Professor Solomon Dakukwan to continue on the, the other slide. So yeah, thank you very much for having me. Uh,
Okay, hello. My name is Professor Solomon Dakwam Jr. and I'm taking over from my colleague Professor Joel Banfo. Alright, let's talk about content integrity. It says here that content integrity enables the recipient to verify that the original content of a message has not been modified. So this is pretty self-explanatory. It just enables the recipient. It makes the recipient aware that the content of the message he or she has received has not been altered or has not been tampered with. And there are three potential threats that need to be considered. That is malicious modification that changes content in a meaningful way. The second point, malicious or non-malicious modification that changes content in a way that is not necessarily meaningful. And the third point, non-malicious modification that changes content in a way that will not be detected. All right. Strong authentication. It says here authentication may be more difficult to achieve securely because of the possibility of eavesdropping and wiretapping, which are less common in non-networked environments. Authentication is trying to make your network stronger, like trying to make it more, let's say, more secure from outsiders, more secure from attackers. So the main issues that we use to authenticate for networks is the one-time password. That's the OTP. You see, when you are logging into a Google account, you are sent a text message. Google sends you a text message. So it's about 6 numbers to input just once. That's it. You can't use it again. That's called an OTP. It's a one-time password. It makes a network more secure. Yeah, instead of the one-time password, the permanent one. Sorry, the permanent password that you use all the time. That one is less effective and less secure. Okay. Then the challenge response systems. The challenge response systems uses cryptographic protocols to, let's say, to make the user prove that he or she knows the password without actually revealing the password. By that's how it basically works. It makes the user prove that he or she knows the password without actually revealing what the content of the password is. Yes. We also have the digital distributor authentication. All right. So access controls. It says here authentication deals with the who of security policy enforcement. Access controls enforce the what and how. So access controls deals with what devices that are going to be authenticated and how the authentication is going to take place. Those are that's what access control does. It enforces the what and the how. And ACLs on routers. ACLs are it's a list. An ACL is a list of rules normally on the router that permits or denies the packets that are going to be sent into and out of the router. So when packets arrive, it compares it with the rules or matches it with the rules. When there's a match, it allows it to enter. But when there's no match, it denies the packet. So routers perform the major tasks of directing network traffic either to sub-networks they control or to other routers for subsequent delivery to other sub-networks. Alright. Alarms and alerts. The logical view of network protection looks like the figure below, in which both a router and a firewall provide layers of protection for the internal network. So you can see from the diagram the external network, and there's two levels of protection. That's the router and the firewall. Then you come to the protected internal network. Alright. A honeypot. Let's talk about a honeypot. It says here that a honeypot is a network attached system set up as a decoy to lure cyber attackers and detect, deflect, and steady hacking attempts to gain unauthorized access to information systems. So a honeypot is basically a system that is attached to a network and serves as bait to trap attackers. Serves as bait, or let's say a distraction to keep attackers from the original system, like your original uh, network. Yes. So the reasons to set up a honeypot. First reason is to watch what attackers do in order to learn about new attacks. So this is self-explanatory. To basically study the attackers, to learn from their methods, to learn how they assess you and how they are gaining access to your network, and to protect yourself more. Yes. And to provide an attractive but diversionary playground, hoping that the attacker will leave your real system alone. So, as I said, it's just like a distraction to just lure the attacker away from your original and real system. Alright, let's move on. And firewalls. Firewalls. Everybody knows what a firewall is. Or if you don't even know, you know your computer has a firewall. And it says here that a firewall is a device that filters all traffic between a protected or inside network and a less trustworthy or outside network. Firewalls were officially invented in the early 1990s. So firewall is basically a barrier between a network that is trustworthy and an untrustworthy network. So your computer's firewall just protects you from the internet as a whole. The internet is not trustworthy. Yeah, you understand, because there are hackers. It's the internet. Come on, it's the internet. Anything, everything can go on the internet. So it's not that secure to just allow your computer to go on the internet just like that, just to and fro like that. It's not safe. So that's the use of a firewall. The firewall monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic based on predetermined security rules. A firewall typically establishes a barrier between a trusted network and an untrusted network, such as the internet. Okay, the design of firewalls. A reference monitor must be always invoked. So, in the design of a firewall, these methods must always be like followed. Yeah. So a reference monitor must always be invoked. That means a reference monitor must always be called. And what a reference monitor is let's see. A reference monitor enforces your system's uh, security policy. You understand? It enforces your system's security policy, such as uh, preventing a normal user from accessing restricted files. You understand? So the reference monitor enforces those kind of rules. You can't just allow a normal user to access, let's say, the password file. That is not for the normal user. So the reference monitor enforces those security rules. And the reference monitor must be tamper proof. This basically means that the system shouldn't allow the reference monitor to be tampered with. It shouldn't allow it to be changed. It should stay the same. And the third point, the reference monitor must be small and simple enough for rigorous analysis. Alright, types of firewalls. Now the types of firewalls, they include the packet filtering gateways or screening routers, the stateful inspection firewalls, application proxy, the guards, and the personal firewalls. Let's see a comparison between them. The comparison between these firewalls are the pack for the packet filtering, it's simple. The stateful inspection is more complex than the packet filtering. The application proxy is even more complex than the stateful and the packet filtering. The guard is the most complex of them, and we have the personal firewall, which is similar to the packet filtering. And also, the packet filtering sees only addresses and service protocol type. The stateful inspection can see either addresses or data. An application proxies sees the full data portion of the packet. The guards sees full text of communication, and also the personal firewall can see full data portion of the packet. The packet filtering, auditing is difficult. Auditing basically means inspection. So the inspection of the firewall is difficult to inspect the packet filtering firewall. And a stateful inspection, auditing is possible. Can audit activity for the application proxy and also for the guard. And the personal firewall can and usually does audit activity. That's the ones on your computers. So packet filtering, screen based on connection rules. The screens is based on connection rules. For the stateful inspection, screens are based on information across packets in either header or data field. Application proxy, the screens based on behavior of proxies. Then for the guard, it screens based on inter interpretation of message contents. Yeah, screens based on the interpretation of message content. And a personal firewall typically screens based on information in a single packet using header or data. Also, the packet filtering has complex addressing rules. It can make configuration tricky. For the stateful inspection, it's usually pre-configured to detect certain attack signatures. Application proxy is simple. Simple proxies can substitute for complex addressing rules. For the guard, complex guard functionality can limit assurance. And the personal firewall usually starts in deny or inbound mode. Okay, to which user adds trusted addresses as they appear. Alright, so these are the comparison of the various firewalls. Okay, let's talk about intrusion detection system. It says here that an intrusion detection system, that's an IDS, is a device, typically another separate computer, that monitors activity to identify malicious or suspicious events. So an intrusion detection system is is a device that just allows that alerts a user or alerts a system when it suspects malicious activity. That's basically what it means. And it says here an IDS is a sensor like a smoke detector that raises an alarm if specific things occur. Yep. And there are types of intrusion detective systems. The first one being the signature based intrusion detection system. This system uses matching. It matches patterns. Let's say it stores the patterns of already known malicious activities or already known uh, attacks and compares it, matches it with the new uh, let's say the new ones. So if there's a match, then it reports it as an attack or a known attack. But if there's no match, then it's safe. So that's basically what the signature based intrusion does. So it says that it performs simple pattern matching and reports situations that match a pattern corresponding to a known attack type. Yep. And the heuristic intrusion detection systems, also known as anomaly based. It builds a model of acceptable behavior and flag exceptions to that model. So this builds a model of acceptable do's that a user or a system that is in the network must follow and flags the exceptions in those do's. That's basically what it does. All right. The goals for intrusion detection systems: responding to alarms. Responses fall into three major categories. That these are the monitor, collect data, perhaps increase amount of data collected. The second point, protect, act to reduce exposure. The third point, call a human. Alright, still on the goals for intrusion detection systems. False results. Just like any other system, IDSs are not perfect. They have faults, and there are two main faults it has. That is raising alarm for something that is not really an attack. It's called a false positive. It's it might the situation might be that it raises an alarm that uh it's not really an attack. That's there's no how should I say this? There's no malicious activity going on, but it raises an alarm anyway. This is called a false positive. And the second point, not raising an alarm for a real attack. This is called a false negative. Hereby a case there's actually a malicious activity going on, there's an attack going on, then the IDS refuses to send or alarm, raise an alarm or to send an alarm to the system. Alright. The secure email. Sometimes we would like email to be more secure. To define and implement a more secure form, we begin by examining the exposures of ordinary email. So for email to be more secure for us, for everybody, we need to know the threats, and some are the message interception, that's confidentiality, and so that this is when the message is intercepted before it gets to the receiver. The contents of the message is exposed before it gets to the receiver. The message interception, that's blocked delivery. In this type of interception, the message is intercepted, all right, but it is not sent to the receiver. The receiver doesn't get it. It doesn't receive the message at all. The message interception and subsequent replay. The message content modification. The message origin modification. Message content forgery. Oh, let me go back. The message content forgery by outsider. Message origin forgery by outsider. The message content forgery by recipient. message origin forgery by recipient, denial of message transmission. Okay, so the requirements and solutions that are supposed to be followed for the protection of emails. First one is the message confidentiality. This the message is not exposed on the route to the receiver. The message shouldn't be exposed before it gets to the receiver. The second point, the message integrity. That is what the receiver sees is what's sent. So none of the message should get lost on the way. It shouldn't, like, it should be intact. The message should get to the receiver intact. And the sender authenticity, the receiver is confident who the sender was. The third one is the non-repudiation. The sender cannot deny having sent the message. All right. The design of the email. So one of the goals for encrypted email is, you see, when there's already a network available for sending emails, the normal email network. The goals for the protected emails, the newer ones, the ones with extra protection, is to not change the already made email networks to accommodate the extra protected emails. You understand? The goal is to utilize the already existing internet email system. Yes. So this requirement ensures that the large existing email network will not require change to accommodate security, as I said. Thus, all protection occurs within the body of a message. Okay. And the examples of secured email, that's the PGP, that's a pretty good privacy. The S-MIME, the secure multi-purpose internet mail extension. Okay, this is the end of the chapter. Thank you very much. Professor Solomon Akukwam Jr. signing off.